Hi everyone, I'm Tom.
And I'm Tom.
And you're watching
or listening to
With the Toms podcast.
Across the series, we'll be delving into the world of learning. Stuff like psychology behind how people learn, how to engage with learners, and what makes good content.
Because we all know not all content is made equal.
Okay, let's get started.
Welcome to this edition of With the Toms, another episode in Learning at Work Week. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the future of learning, or at least what we think the future of learning might look like. In this particular episode, Tom too's going to answer the questions for a change, mixing it up. We'll keep this one short and sweet and just give you some thought-provoking information about the future of learning.
Okay, so my first question is,
yes,
Tom, to you, what is the future of learning?
Okay, so I suppose thinking about this, and we've got some information actually coming after the podcast about this kind of content, but I guess the thing for me that really stands out is that 65% of kids, so young kids today, are going to be employed in jobs that don't even exist yet. That can sound like quite a scary statistic, but actually it's a great opportunity. And I think the thing is, the big thing within this really is the role of technology. So for me, it's not really actually even tomorrow's world, it's today's world. You think about the kind of technology we've got now, be it things like Alexa, you've got video doorbells, you've got drones, it doesn't really matter. Technology is here right now. So I think the future of learning actually is not something to be scared of, it's something that we can embrace and really see as an opportunity.
Okay. And the role within L&D?
Yeah, so I suppose, hopefully the fact that people are listening to this kind of podcast, engaging with our content, means that you recognise, I suppose, that really that kind of people, your teams, your people, in other words, the human capital of your company is its greatest asset. Like I said, really, I think there is a huge opportunity for learning and development to get involved and to help, not necessarily be the complete solution to this challenge, but to really be a big part of it. And I think a big thing for learning and development is not necessarily to think that it's about being the silver bullet, but actually they can be a driving force for getting the wider business to think about what skills they might need, what capabilities, what competencies they're going to need in the future. So I think learning and development can play this role within the middle, almost like a sort of negotiator, influencer, to really get the key groups in the business together, the key stakeholders, and really help them think about what is the learning and development needs for the future and how can L&D and e-learning and all the things we've got around this space really help businesses in the future.
So we look then at certain businesses and I suppose they've got certain implementations of L&D, there's certain systems that they've got in place. So if they wanted to move forward, how can they prepare better in their business? Yeah,
definitely. So great question. So I think when I've been thinking about this, I think there's probably 5-6 points that I would probably think about that you can go away during this week, even future weeks, and actually start to ask yourself, ask your colleagues, ask those out in the business to think about. So I think, as always with anything, when we create content, when we're talking to customers, when learning development, is out there, it's about what is the future goals of the business, and you kind of don't really, there's no point in doing something, creating something if there isn't a need for it. So for me, the number one point is don't get distracted by thinking this is the future of learning, and therefore it's some kind of, sort of weird, mystical thing that hasn't got any kind of shape. It's like, where are we going to be? What are the goals of the business? What are the drivers? What do we want to achieve? That's always the best place to start. And then the second point is to create the right environment. And we think about our office space we've got here, we're trying to create something that's the right space, people can be creative. It's the same with learning and development, and certainly within the future of learning. And I know plenty of businesses now who create great spaces for learning. I can think of Lanes for Drains, Lanes Group, for example. They've got their own virtual reality centre. They've got their own spaces for learning. I think that's really important when you're talking about the future of learning. I think it's about nurturing, not just training. So we've got lots of young people coming through, apprentices, the workforce of tomorrow, I guess. And for me, it's about not just training them, you're nurturing them to be the leaders of the future. That's really important. Bringing it back to our content, and I guess the question maybe I'll flip it back to you, Tom, a little bit, but I think a big thing about preparing for the future is about thinking about how you make content more interactive, but also gamifying it. And I think that's a big thing for the future. So I don't know if you want to just say a minute or so on what is gamification? How can you sort of describe it?
It's a buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think I like it. I think best way to describe gamification is more about bringing the learning back to the learner, getting them to more of an active role within the learning. I think everybody realises when they do those sort of face-to-face training, the more you learn is the more it's when they are more you're interacting, aren't you? You're taking more of an empowered approach to the actual session, and I think gamification's a bit like that. In the real world, I think traditionally people have stuck to their guns with in e-learning of traditional quizzes, in the sense that they are multiple choice.
Yes.
And they generally, as a convention, come at the end of learning, which isn't the best way, because you could take 20 minutes of training and then you've got maybe a bit of a quiz at the end, and it's not the best way, because you want people to, or candidates to be doing, is having more of an input, more of an exchange after each sort of first, module, if you like. And in terms of gamification, it isn't just questions. Multiple choice. We're looking at other conventions and interventions, aren't we, which are sort of games, actual games. Like rocket ships, tracing words, but they always happen quite shortly after you've done some learning. So you might have a learning objective, or you might have taken a piece of learning, and then you're assessed on it, if you like.
Recency, I guess, isn't it?
It is recency.
As you're doing it.
So it is about that exchange, it's that interaction. And there are so many ways of doing it, and I think we're looking at certainly actually making games, doing it that way. So
great. No, thanks. I like the way you describe it, I guess, because I think when people start talking about gamification, they immediately jump into the kind of like, what is it as in the physical thing? Is it a quiz? Is it a game? Is it points? Is it a leaderboard? But actually, it's probably more about, like you say, it's just about using it as a mechanism to get learners engaged with what they're doing, isn't it? That's the big thing, I think. That's the difference.
I think that's how you pick things up, isn't it? It's like the old adage, isn't it? You read, you're told something, that you read it and read it back, and it's you come to absorb it. But if you become an integral part of it, it's you're going to learn it more. It's like actually doing it. I know there are those three different types of the way people learn, aren't there? I forget what they are now. But it's the doing part is how you pick it up.
Absolutely, and that's on another one of our episodes.
You
can probably pick it up better from there. But no, great, thanks, Tom. And I think then just the last two, just to sort of wrap it up in terms of how you can prepare, the kinds of questions you could be asking yourself and your businesses. Is actually making sure that you're making time within the business to do the learning. I think there's so many different ways in which you can learn now and again. And you think about the content we make. We don't just do it to sat at a desktop, sat in an office, in a dedicated room. It can be mobile, it can be on the go. So many different ways you can consume content. And I think it is about, again, thinking about the needs of your learners in the future and how you can satisfy that, really. And then I think the last thing, just to sort of round out this episode, I think really is it's about, for me, it's about embracing change and innovation now, because the future of learning isn't tomorrow. The future of learning is right now. It's today, and we're stepping into this space, even now. So actually make sure, I guess, that you feel that there's the culture within the business, that people are open to change, they're open to innovation, and that you're creating that right atmosphere for that to happen. So there, just a little bit, I think, about the future of learning, some thoughts. I think hopefully there's some key questions there that you can go away and ask yourself and ask your business. Hopefully you've enjoyed that episode. Remember, I guess, to check out the other resources that come along with this particular edition of our podcast. Check out the other ones from throughout the course of this week. Otherwise, follow us on social media as per usual and check us out. Otherwise, it's safe to say it's good night from him.
And good night from him.
Thank you very much.
Did you know that the human brain processes visuals 60 times that... did you know that the human drain... Drain? What the...
I can't really grow a proper beard. It's about as good as it gets.
3 months.
3 weeks.
So
doesn't matter.
You got a light fluffy beard.
Well, it just tends to go for it. It just goes a bit wispy. Never really goes, My dad could have got a good beard, but the photo of him young ago, it looks...
My granddad had a good beard. He was a Marine's beard.
Okay, yeah, that's a beard and a half.